Yeah, and they used to have some great guys on the board, like Stanley Jacobs from New Orleans,
Exactly,
and Charlie Weems, and those guys were instrumental in getting Nick Saban.
Now, who was the doctor? Who was the doctor for a long time from New Orleans?
Oh yeah. He's got a great. He's got a museum.
He's legitimate. Stanley Jacobs was a guy that could not be bought. Was not going to be a yes man to a governor. Was going to do the best for LSU. And LSU fan. Right. It's like you. Honestly, Glenn, it's like what you do. Glenn Guilbeau's from New Orleans. If you put a gun to Glenn's head, he likes LSU. He's a fan off the air, when he's not a journalist. But Glenn is a journalist first when he works. I go online, Glenn. I hear these. You'll report something, and folks are just ripping you. I'm like, these are some of the most flaky fans. I don't even consider them real LSU fans. They just flake out, no consistency, dogging you because you're reporting a true story. It blows my mind.
Well, most of those people are like my family members and relatives. No, the board now just seems like a bunch of yahoos. Like there's one board member. I'm not going to say his name. Who's in Lake Charles, and he was convinced that he was going to get Will Wade to coach LSU last year, and that wasn't going to happen. And here's the thing about Scott Woodward. Jeff Landry has booted him to the curb today, but Scott Woodward is a very experienced political operative, going back to his days when he and James Carville worked for Mayor Pat Scream in the early 80s. And then Woodward became a lobbyist in Baton Rouge. And then he later got into chancellor work under Mark Emmert at LSU, and then turned that into being an athletic director. So he's very skilled in a lot of different areas that'll help him. And he knows some powerful people in Baton Rouge. I mean, Richard Lipsey, who started TAF, who's still very powerful. Scott is close friends with Richard, and Scott's dad was close with Richard too. So, he's got some power too. So I don't know if he's just going to go away.
No, I hear you. Jeff Landry reminds me a lot of Donald Trump, MAGA, has lots of opinions, likes asserting himself in every situation. And like Trump, Landry is publicly saying today, you asked him the question, he does not like Scott Woodward, doesn't seem to respect Scott Woodward. If he's on the governor's bad side, how does Scott Woodward come back from that? I don't know. I guess, little Mario and whatever. Now he's Secretary of State. So, I mean, I guess you can come back when Trump is against you. I guess Scott Woodward could come back. What I'm getting at, Glenn, is does Scott Woodward want to play that game? I don't know. I guess he's getting compensated in nice fashion. Maybe he will, but it seems like if you had any pride and you wanted to be an athletic director, you want to have autonomy. You're getting hired to do the job. You don't want to be micromanaged. Like I said earlier, it's like he's spayed or neutered by Jeff Landry. Do you think Woodward's longed for that job? I don't know Woodward enough. I've had him on the show a couple of times, but I don't know if he wants to stick around for that. Maybe he does. I don't know.
Well, I think, if there's powerful people in Baton Rouge who can get Governor Landry's ear, they're going to tell him, look, this is a great athletic director. He hired Kim Mulkey, and Landry's a big Kim Mulkey fan. He hired Jay Johnson. Landry just had the baseball team and Jay Johnson at the governor's mansion after they went to see Trump at the White House. So people are going to tell him that Woodward has been a good athletic director. He just blew it on the Kelly hire. He probably should have vetted Kelly a little more, probably should have talked to some former coaches of Kelly, maybe former players, maybe looked a little closer. But I think he's probably still going to stay on as athletic director, but he does need to be told if he is not involved in this, if he doesn't eventually get back involved in the coaching search, he needs to find a younger, cheaper coach and lay off the contracts. I mean, the most ridiculous, he did have to give Kelly a big contract to get him from Notre Dame. Okay.
10 years?
Well, no, maybe not 10 years. Maybe not. The salary. Yeah. It probably should have been about 5 or 6 years. You're right. But the really as stupid was the Orgeron buyout, because Ed Orgeron was at his dream school. He wasn't going to go anywhere, so you didn't have to give him the big buyout. You know,
I think that was some hush money for, you know, the crap that went down the latter end of Miles Orgeron's era, just in case there was a trial with all these sexual harass claims and all that
maybe,
crap.
but not that much. I mean, you know, nobody was trying to hire Ed. I mean, he did a great job at LSU, but he was not a hot commodity. He didn't need that huge raise and contract extension and buyout. But you know, it's not his money. That's the thing. It's other people's money that he's spending.
No doubt. Glenn, any ideas on how LSU is going to approach it? As far as, I mean, it seems like you got to get a coach. I mean, ideally you want one like maybe before the SEC title game or right after it, before the bowl games. Then that may not be realistic. And then if teams are in the playoffs, like Sumrall in Tulane or Kiffin in Ole Miss, do you have to wait till that's over with? And then if you do that, you've probably missed the recruiting class. You've missed the, you know, transfer portal. You know, maybe that's a good long-term approach if you get one of those coaches. Maybe it's not good for the short term. How do you think LSU is going to approach it, and when would they make a hire, in your opinion?
Well, I definitely think they should not rush the hire just for some recruiting date, because you can make up for missed recruiting classes through the portal. Players are leaving after a year anyway, but they got a pretty good recruiting class right now, and they were really smart in promoting Frank Wilson to associate head coach. I mean, to interim coach from associate head coach, and you know, that's your guy. Keep him on recruiting.
Yep.
You know, make sure you don't lose any guys. Keep recruiting. You know, Frank Wilson is probably going to be at LSU with the new coach, so they need to sell that. You know, Frank needs to tell the kids, look, I'm going to be here.
Yep.
We're going to get a good coach. I don't know who it is yet. It might be this guy because they're in the playoffs. So if you got to wait till January to get the right coach, I say wait till January and get the right coach. If you got to sacrifice a recruiting class, so be it. You know, you got to go long term. You got to look at hiring a coach for 10 years, and don't worry about some recruiting class in December. And you could probably have time to make up in the portal class. You know, and if not, you just get them next year.
And how do you go about it? First off, you call Nick Saban and just, you know, throw $15 million out and just test the water. Long shot, probably not going to happen. Then you go after Lane Kiffin. Long shot may not happen. Then it's John Sumrall. What are you doing, Glenn?
Yeah, I like John Sumrall, and boy, I hope. And Scott Woodward's an old school LSU guy. If he is hiring the coach, or if some of the old school board members are hiring the coach, I hope they don't, you know, say, "Oh, I'm not hiring a Tulane coach." That's ridiculous. He's a great coach. He's young. He's got an SEC background. He coached at Troy. So, you know, he may want an Auburn job more if that doesn't happen. His wife went to Auburn. But that type of coach is what they need. You know, I really like the Oregon coach. He's only 38. I don't know if they could get him away from Oregon.
He's a former Alabama assistant under Saban too,
yeah,
I believe.
Yeah, he's got SEC ties.
Yep.
Eli Drinkwitz at Mizzou, he would be a good one. He's only 42. He's done a lot without much. You know, there's not a great recruiting base in Missouri,
no doubt.
And he doesn't have a big portal budget like Kelly had, so he could be a good one. You know, the Arizona State coach is only 35, so there's some coaches out there who'll be interested.
Who are the coaches that have no shot of getting the gig? Ed Orgeron's been mentioning him. Like, you fans are so flaky. Jimbo Fisher.
Yeah, no, that's not going to happen. You know, I've heard Dabo Sweeney.
No shot.
Yeah, Dabo's too old school. He hates the portal and NIL, which I do too. But you know, you got to do that game if you're a coach. I would call Nick Saban for his recommendations. I would do that, but he's not getting back into coaching.
No, it doesn't appear he's going to get back into coaching. I mean, we can't get inside his head. Maybe he has an itch to get back, and he's dying to do it. But he has the car dealerships. He's probably making hundreds of. He might make north of $1 million a year with ESPN going on once a week. Who knows what his contract is? He's making seven figures out. You know, $1 million+ on multiple different avenues. So he definitely doesn't need the money.
Like,
plus, I think he's worth a couple $100 million. Nick Saban's worth like $200 million, I heard.
Yeah, and he doesn't like the portal and NIL. So
Nope.
that's really why he retired.
Yep.
He might have stayed another year or two.
Definitely. He would have kept coaching. I don't think he likes retirement. The ESPN thing is like, wow, didn't think I'd like this. I like it. I'm getting paid. And it's, my time's being taken care of. So I'm not bored,
Right. He still plays golf.
Yep. Glenn, Tommy Moffitt thought he would be around. Kelly fired him. You think Frank Wilson's staying? No doubt.
Yeah, Frank Wilson was one of Brian Kelly's first hires in December, right after he got the job. So, he Verge Osbury and people at LSU told him, the type of recruiter Frank is. Now, they neglected to tell Brian that Frank had a lawsuit on his hands, and he also had an NCAA reprimand, but he's beyond that now. He's a great recruiter for LSU, and I think he can keep the staff and the commitments together. I think he'll be there for the next crew. Now, you got to remember, Tommy Moffitt was a great strength coach at LSU, but when you got to put yourself back to 2021, when Kelly came in, that program was in shambles. I mean, they had gone 5-5, they had gone 6-7, they had a mass exodus. They only had 39 scholarship players. There was a lot of staff members in that program that had been there since Les Miles. It needed some new blood, and Kelly brought in all that new blood. He may have even been directed to do that or asked to do that. So it's not when a successful coach, and he was successful. I mean, that Notre Dame team was really good, his last team. And the team, a lot of players he left were on that playoff team last year. When coaches like that come into a losing program, which LSU was for 2 years, I mean, they had won it all in 2019, but that was a long time ago in 2021, the way they were playing. Most coaches in that situation would have cleaned house. And that's what he did. And unfortunately, Moffitt was one to go.
Corey Raymond probably sticks around as well.
I would hope so. I mean, he's a well-respected coach.
Kelly fired him and then brought him back later, so we'll see.
Yeah, that was a mistake. He should have kept him.
The GM Austin, what's his name? Austin.
Yeah, I would think he would stay. It depends on who the coach is.
Yep.
If they bring in an offensive coordinator type coach, which would be the first ever, they might bring in their own defensive coordinator. The Blake Baker he hasn't been great, but he's a rising young coach. I don't know if he'll get to stay or not, though.
Glenn, final question. In your opinion, will LSU get a first-tier coach like Lane Kiffin, that you're expecting him to win right away, like he's the solution? Are they going to get a guy like John Summerall, an up-and-comer that if he does what he's done, you got a winner and he could be there like 20 years? Or could they get a coach that we haven't heard of?
I think they're going to get a young up-and-comer kind of like John Summerall. I don't know if it'll be John Summerall, but it's going to be somebody of that ilk, late 30s, early to mid 40s, who's a coach on the rise, who's been maybe at a little smaller school than an SEC level school. And yeah. I think that could really work.
And no Lane Kiffin?
Well, I think it would be great if they could get Lane Kiffin. He's only 50. He's really just starting to get things going. He seems like he's more mature now. Nick was 49 when he came to LSU. I think he could be a version of that maybe.
Yep.
But I just, Ole Miss is a great job. He's made it a great job.
Yep.
And like there's not that big gap between schools anymore. There's a lot of schools that weren't great a while back that are now, like Ole Miss.
And I think Lane Kiffin, you said it, he's more mature now, which is like a catch-22 in this instance. If he was younger and immature like he was in the past, he might leave Ole Miss on a whim to go to LSU. But I think now he's older and more mature, and he realizes maybe the grass isn't greener on the other side of the fence. It's just different. And like you said, I've created this viable college football program in Oxford. And maybe he feels that there aren't limitations, and he can do what he would do at LSU. Maybe not as easily, but can ultimately get it done.
Well, the thing that Kiffin could better himself at LSU or at Florida is both of those schools have better recruiting bases, better recruiting geography for high school traditional recruiting than Ole Miss has.
No doubt.
And that may appeal to him because that's why he's so reliant on the portal, is because there's not a lot of players in Mississippi. And if you come to LSU, you're the only school. You go to Florida, a lot of players, but you got Central Florida, you got Florida State, you got Miami. So,
no, and look at the recruiting class right now. I don't think LSU's lost a recruit since they fired Brian Kelly officially. And all the competing schools that recruit was looking at, they are calling him and pounding him and trying to get him to decommit and flip. So the fact is, a lot of players commit to LSU. Some were even saying that. I commit to LSU, not the coach. I commit to LSU. Ole Miss, I think, is differently. I mean, if you have a pedigree like a Manning or something, maybe so. But I don't think the average kid's committing to Ole Miss. They're committing to Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss, where LSU almost as big as the coach,
Yeah, and really, Kelly was not a great recruiter.
Obviously not. Not when you have to go to the transfer portal like he has to. Everybody was praising that. Number one transfer portal class, $20 million spent. He put up $1 million of his own money, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, if he was recruiting year in, year out, lining the O-line, lining up the D-line, wouldn't have to go to the transfer portal. And then you get like 6, 7 starters out of it. That tells me recruiting was not as good as advertised.
Right. If you notice, Notre Dame is sometimes tough to recruit to because of the academic requirements. When Maneri was the baseball coach there, when he came to LSU, he started recruiting better immediately, won a national championship in 3 years. I thought you might see that from Kelly, but he never did get it going in traditional high school recruiting. So, a Summerall, one of those guys in their 30s or 40s, that's what they need. They need a great recruiter because Miles and Orgeron, you can say what you want about them, but they were both really good recruiters.
No doubt.
Not as good as Saban, but they were much better than Kelly. That's what they need again. They need that type of recruiter to get the state and then add maybe 6 or 7 portal guys a year instead of 20.
Exactly. The portal's to supplement, not to build the whole team on.
Right.
No, that's a great point, Glenn. That's a hell of a good point. And folks are going to be like, no doubt. That's part of coaching. And no, it's Brian Kelly's a Hall of Fame coach. Recruiting wasn't a strong point, and you need a coach that's a hellacious recruiter, no doubt. Glenn, any final thoughts on the last 5 days in Baton Rouge?
I'm ready to go to New Orleans and see some music, man. That's what I'm ready to do.
I hear you. Text me the next time you're in town and you do that. I'll meet you.
All right, man. Thanks, Corey.
Thank you, Glenn. I really appreciate it. Good hearing from you again. That's Glenn Guilbeau, editor of Tiger Rag. Does a great job. I know some of you Tiger fans get upset about Glenn, but you have to think about it. Is he reporting the truth and you just don't like it? Yeah, I know a lot of you are like that. Why is he exposing that? LSU wanted to keep it secret. It's like, I don't know. He's a journalist. He's not supposed to be a fan. And he's not supposed to go out and attack and, have some agenda or chip on his shoulders to go abuse people. I kind of do my job the same way. I get a guest on. I don't want to go attack them. And I'm not out to kiss their ass. I'm out to ask real journalistic-based questions that you, the listening, viewing audience, want to hear, that you would ask. And, appeasing and placating because you're an LSU fan and you want the journalist to be a fan. I'm an adult. I want the journalists to be journalists. I'm an LSU fan to the hilt. I'll take the good news and the bad news. I want the truth. It's journalist's job to help the university and hide information that they find out about. No, I don't. It's funny. Jeff Duncan on social media, Glenn Guilbeau, I kind of laugh sometimes at the fans attacking. It's like, really? Someone today, I said something about Tulane on Twitter, and someone, hey, you're not Glenn Dunk and Jeff Duncan and someone else. I forgot. I'm just like, what's wrong with those guys? Crazy. Anyway, wide open Wednesday. Getting closer to the weekend. Gotta like that. By the way, get outside right now. The sun's about to drop out of the sky in about 30 minutes. Less than that, really. It sucks. And in a few weeks, it'll be that daylight savings time crap, and it'll be dark by like 5:15. But it is a gorgeous afternoon. Feels like high 50s, sunny, breezy, cool. Maybe our first fall day in 2025. It continues. Might have a little rain on Sunday. Maybe that's the, forecast. But the weather continues for like the next week. 50s and 60s and maybe even some 70s at the highest. That's Blue Boy. He gets all feisty. Moves a little better. Wants to run around. Enjoys this crisp, cool air. Do the same thing. Drop some coals. Do some grilling in the yard tonight. Head out to a restaurant with outdoor dining. Enjoy our city in this fabulous weather. See you mañana, 4 p.m. right here.
You're on the neutral ground with Corey Johnson on TV on Cox Channel 4 and Spectrum Channel 333. Also on YouTube, on radio at NOLA Talk 93.9 FM, WSLA New Orleans.
It's 6 p.m.